Assalamualaikum, my name is Siti Atira binti Zakaria Alais Nasir. So today I'm going to present about the part of passive analysis of Tunisia. The first one is political. Tunisia's government is currently unstable because of its democratic transformation. Furthermore, we also can see the current political situation at their corruption level. The rank of Tunisia in corruption cases was on the rank of 70 for over 180 countries. Over 67% of each citizen think that the corruption case is increasing in the past 12 months. Businesses, particularly in the public procurement industry, can easily experience bribery, blackmail, or easing payment. While gift giving and gift receiving are stated as illegal and can be categorized as criminal, but such activity in Tunisia is a typical activity. The second one is economic. According to the most recent IMF predictions, Tunisia's GDP growth is expected to decrease at negative 4.3% in 2020 due to the outbreak of COVID-19. This has led to the unemployment rate in Tunisia increasing, which has reached 14.9% in 2019 and keep on increasing in 2020, which is 60.15%. In Tunisia, the unemployment rate is high, especially among women and the educated. Stated that 85% of people under 35 years old are unemployed and 40% of these have university degrees and 3/4 of them are women. This is due to high supply of labor constraints, low skill labor demand, and a disparity between the skills required and the skills produced by the country's education and training system. The third one is sociological. According to a study conducted by the American Chamber of Commerce, Tunisia's workers' force is well educated, diligent, and easy to grow. This demonstrates Tunisians' societal eagerness to transform Tunisia into a healthy and stable country. These laborers, on the other hand, require additional training to create a stable and dependable workforce which contributes to Tunisia's development. Not to forget that religion is very important in Tunisian culture, and its people embrace others' religions, allowing immigrants to peacefully worship their own religion. The fourth one is technological. Priorities are set to restore Tunisia's stability in terms of Tunisian government's data. The priorities are security, red tape, increased FDI rewards, education, and infrastructure improvement. The most significant thing is to improve infrastructure because Tunisia has so many traits. Improving education contributes to technical change in the future that could contribute to Tunisia's economy and expertise. As a result, the Ministry of Health established the Digital Health, which is e-health development initiative that strives to equip Tunisian healthcare facilities with ICT equipments. It is a technology that combines information system with telemedicine capabilities. The fifth one is legal. Corruption complicates and makes commercial activity difficult in Tunisia. Many businesses are confronted at some stage with corruption in their business operation. This is one danger that emerging economies could start or expand their business. But to eliminate corruption, the Tunisian government plans to simplify bureaucracy. Meanwhile, businesses are not expected to be interested in corruption, so corruptors are motivated to make more money from corruptions. Last but not least is environmental. Tunisia's climate can differ by region. Tunisia is well known for their warm and dry summers and mild winter climate, which happen all around their region. Currently, there are many natural disasters that can happen in Tunisia. The most usual natural disaster that happened in this country was a flood in 3 types of flood, which is river flood, urban flood, and coastal flood. Flood disaster had been responsible for over 60% of damage towards Tunisia countries, either from the economy such as damaging the crop, infrastructure, and the death of Tunisian people. Besides having flood disaster, they also had to face drought problem that contributed to wildfire disaster that had damaged over 34,000 hectares of jungles.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Aisha. So let's move to the SWOT analysis. We will start with SWOT analysis of trade before pandemic. Strengths for trade is the EU and Tunisia signed an association agreement in July 1995, which went into effect on March 30, 1998. The agreement created a free trade zone in which all two-way commerce in industrial items is free of trade duties. Concerning agricultural, agri-food and fishery goods, the EU and Tunisia agreed to gradually expand their respective markets for specified items. After a 12-year period of gradually decreasing tariff to zero, Tunisia eventually established a free trade zone with the EU in 2008. Weaknesses of trade in Tunisia is Tunisia does not purchase its industrial export in the traditional sense. However, it assembles items from and for France and Italy. Despite major attempts to diversify exports, geographical export diversification is really quite restricted, with the EU absorbing about 80% of Tunisian exports and France and Italy accounting for more than 55% of total exports inside the EU. Tunisia's economy is reflected in this extremely skewed trade pattern. Moreover, as for trade opportunities, Tunisia should have a non-tariff barrier on some products. Non-tariff limitations such as import license criteria or prohibitions on particular items are common among countries that sign trade deals with Tunisia. These specifically pertain to consumer items such as agricultural products that must compete against local products produced by developing industries in the nation or commodities for which the country's present supply is regarded sufficient. Threats of trade before pandemic includes the burden of Tunisia's agriculture policy incurred when Tunisia paid for its agriculture strategy on 3 levels. The country faces economically from the strain of significant agricultural product imports into a world market defined by price swings and driven by major producers' demand and also supply variables to export. Moving on to the SWOT analysis after the pandemic. As for the strengths, even after the pandemic that affected the country's economy, the country's trade policy has remained unchanged. Tunisia has become a member of the Arab Maghreb Union (UMA) along with Mauritania, Morocco, Algeria and also Libya. Although these UMA members will benefit from duty-free trade among themselves, some trade restrictions will persist, most of which allow for free trade among members. Tunisia will be able to boost its trading operations within the country since the government will ultimately draft many enterprises to export and import goods from Tunisia. As for weaknesses, Tunisia's exports declined 26.5% between February and March 2020, owing mostly to a drop in European and worldwide demand as well as the closure of industrial zones in reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic. Most of these firms' operations will be disrupted, resulting in short-term layoffs. Consequently, as a result of COVID-19, 80% of private sector workers in industrial occupations are no longer employed. Opportunities for Tunisia is there are certain products have a non-tariff barrier. Trade obstacles are changing for countries that sign trade deals with Tunisia, which generally involve non-tariff limitations such as import, license criteria or prohibitions of particular items. These imports are for consumer items such as farm products that had to compete against local products produced by developing sectors in the nation or commodities for which the country's present supply is regarded enough. As for the threats faced by Tunisia, includes terrorism in Tunisia had been unabated and it does not appear to be deterring or slowing down. On March 6, 2020, a suicide bomber targeted the US Embassy in Tunisia, killing 1 police officer and injuring 4 others on a civilian. On September 6, 2020, 2 Tunisian National Guard officers were ambushed by 3 attackers in Sousse, Government of the United Kingdom 2020. As Tunisia closes its borders, commerce with France, Italy, Germany and also China in particular has dropped. Now, let's move to SWOT analysis of investment before the pandemic. As for the strengths, Tunisia's parliament has finally adopted a new investment law in order to attract more international companies to the country. According to the new investment legislation, investors now have more flexibility in transferring funds and earnings out of the nation, and taxes on gains from significant projects will be eliminated for 10 years. This implies that the investor can freely move cash and profits in foreign currency in compliance with existing regulations. The unemployment rate among the younger generation is a structural problem caused by Tunisia's development policies during the previous 2 decades, where the economy has been unable to produce enough jobs to accommodate an increasing number of young people entering the workforce. There is significant investment potential in the tourist business. Tunisia has a thriving tourism business because of its lovely Mediterranean climate, beautiful beaches and outstanding antique infrastructure. Tunisia's current government is offering a variety of comprehensive investment incentives to build this area. Cultural and historic tours, golf packages, desert excursions, and medical tourism all provide investment potential in the tourist industry. Lastly, Tunisia's stress is that they have entered the debt repayment cycle. Tunisia will use its loan to pay off the debt in 2020 as a worsening economic slump drags the nation into a vicious lending cycle to bridge its liability gap. As a result, Tunisia's debt as a percentage of GDP has risen from 35% in 2010 to an estimated 80% in 2019. Now, let's move on to the SWOT analysis of investment after the pandemic. Despite COVID-19, technology is rapidly evolving. Tunisia, for its part, does not want to remain behind in terms of technology. They accomplish this by putting in extra effort and focusing on the country's startup enterprises. In addition, as of August 2020, Tunisia already has 327 startup enterprises that have earned the startup label, which entitles them to perks such as a site for applying for a startup categorization. As per the witnesses after the pandemic, by the end of 2020, the unemployment rate will have risen by 3 to 4 percentage points as a result of these circumstances. This is because, in addition to losing jobs, the youthful population that will enter the labor force must be considered. One of the most visible shifts since the COVID-19 outbreak has been the movement of many people to work from home settings in all occupations. In terms of opportunities, engineers created a versatile robot equipped with an infrared camera and GPS system, allowing cops to issue orders for identity documents and send vocal alerts to those who violate lockdown laws. Simultaneously, Innova Robotics, a local startup business, developed the VeriSense robot, which allows medical workers to remotely diagnose and examine patients without being physically present with the corona patient. Last but not least, threats of investment after the pandemic is, according to the Tunisian National Statistical Institute, the rate of unemployment grew from 15% to 18% in 2020. According to a recent government and UN assessment, it will reach 21.6% or 274,500 unemployed by the end of 2020.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Zunur Ain and I will present on the topic of significant changes before and after pandemic. The most impacted issues in Tunisia were about export and import and how the pandemic situation make it worse. Before pandemic, Tunisia exports over 75% of its goods to the European Union. However, many of Tunisia's exports are not produced in the country. The EU accounts for most of both exports and imports. The most major trading partner is France, which is followed by Italy, Germany and China. In terms of trade, after pandemic, since the closure of industrial zones, European and worldwide demand has dropped, and it gives an impact towards Tunisia's exports. Their export has dropped about 26.4% between February and March due to the pandemic. The closure of Tunisia's borders has resulted in a substantial drop in external trade, particularly with France, Italy, Germany and China. Clothing and textiles saw a 45% drop in foreign trade, followed by mechanical and electrical industries with a 34% drop. The European Union's limitation on fresh products imports, which absorbs about 80% of fresh goods including fish supplied by Tunisian producers, has resulted in a considerable decline in exports. Due to the closing of international borders in March, tourism receipts dropped by over 30%. All foreign tourist bookings were cancelled during the entire lockdown in April, resulting in an estimated 80% decline in Tunisia's tourism sector. In terms of investment, before pandemic, Tunisia has a very high number of young people out of work, and this trend has maintained after the Tunisian Revolution, with youngsters aged 15 to 24 years old. The first factor of this issue is the drastic shift in the labor force composition. As of April 6, 95% of Tunisia's hotel, restaurants, cafes and other tourist-oriented companies have shuttered their doors. According to the Tunisian Center for Economic and Social Research, 1.92 million informal workers, particularly in rural, western and southern regions with high poverty rates, are at risk of losing their job. Even when their employer resumed commercial operations in the third quarter of 2020, 29,000 jobless Tunisians who had lost their jobs due to the coronavirus COVID-19 crisis did not return to work. The majority of them blamed their former employer for the problem. Indeed, 35% of the unemployed did not return to work because the company's business activities were limited, while 23% did not return to work due to the company's financial troubles. Furthermore, 9% of people stayed jobless when their employers declined to hire them back.
Hi, my name is Izan Fahmi, and for my part, I will talk about government aid to firms and industries. As we all have known, Tunisia has been struggling with COVID-19, but Tunisia was praised as one of the best countries to deal with COVID-19, but they still have problems to resolve. Tunisia government has announced a set of financial and economic measures to mitigate the effects on closure on the economy. The goal of the aid was to prevent bankruptcies or permanent discontinuation of corporate agencies, maintain employment, and financially support the most booming and profitable business. Okay. The first aid given to firms and industries in Tunisia is Tunisia signed a contract for 25 million euro with KFW Development Bank to support small and medium-sized enterprises that have fallen into financial difficulties as a result of the COVID-19 shock. Second is the payback of value-added tax, also known as VAT credit, to companies. According to Tunisia fiscal policy as of June 30th, 2021, stated in the International Monetary Fund, government to accelerate VAT reimbursement. Third, they also request assistance from other countries to help fight the pandemic. Countries such as USA, Saudi Arabia, UAE, France, China, and many more. Other than that, number 4, Tunisia government provide additional financing for the health sector and establishes specialized COVID-19 units in hospital. They also delayed tax debt for companies having financial difficulties. There were many helps were given to the firms from the government, and each of those helps were very helpful. My opinion on the Tunisia government in handling the pandemic is very inspiring and exemplary for the first phase. But in July, the negligence caused a spike of cases and the flaws are shown on where sector need improving, such as the healthcare system, which suffered geographic disparity in the distribution of resources, and also their politics are also often unstable. That is all from me. Thank you.
For the last part, in Tunisia, the most outstanding issue in their country is unemployment rate. One of the factors that contribute to this issue is regulations and institutions that govern the functioning of the labor market are inefficient and rigid. To resolve this issue, the government needs to improve the system education in the country by making a research on the demand sectors that contribute most to the revenue of the country, and the education system needs to prepare the syllabus that can enhance the skills that are required by the industry and can fulfill the needs of the employer. A responsive education system can help alleviate skill disparities by ensuring that graduates have skills that are in line with labor market demand. That's all from us. Thank you.